Greetings. It's 6 p.m., so I will call this regular committee of the whole meeting of Monday, May 4th to order. I am Councillor Duncan in the chair, and I have Councillors Novak, O'Keefe, and Rintoul to my left. Councillor Duck to my far right is away this evening. Mayor McNeil-Smith and Councillor Garnett are to my right. I would like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Wasanish Nations tonight, and I know that we'll have Spec presenting to us later who have been meeting and collaborating with them, so we hope to continue to be good government partners with all of our neighbors going forward. With that, I will move to approval of the agenda. I see we have one item of correspondence to add to 8A. Is there anything else to add? Nothing? All right, I will look for a motion to approve. So moved and seconded. I will do this right this time. I'll call the question. All approval. There we go. Last time I kept forgetting. We have public participation on the meeting tonight. If you have something to speak to on the agenda that's not part of, actually I guess we don't have any. I'm sorry?
Point of order, we need to approve the minutes, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I will look to, dang, I was so close. The approval of the minutes for the regular committee of the whole, which I chaired last time, so I'll look for a motion. Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? There we go. With that, I will move to public participation. We have a presentation tonight, but we have no public participation associated directly with either the staff report or the presentation. So if you would like to come forward and speak to one of the items as somebody who is not presenting, you may come forward now. You have 4 minutes. Please state your name and the municipality where you reside.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Hit the button. There you go.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is David Scott. I am the president of the Peninsula Tennis Club. I am here tonight to be able to introduce myself and let you know who we are, and also to make myself available to answer any questions about any of the report that has been given to you that may impact the tennis. On that note, I will wish you a good evening and stay until the item is called. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for coming forward. I'll call for a second time. Anybody who would wish to come forward? Seeing none, I'll call a, oh, come forward.
Do I need to push the button?
No, it's
already pushed.
still on. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Madam Chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Cindy Barton, and I live in Sydney. I'm also the president of the Peninsula Community Pickleball Club. We are the main pickleball club on the peninsula. We have 250 members and several hundred on our wait list. We operate right here on the Saanich Peninsula, and all of our board does live here as well. And we just wanted to come and support the initiative that's been put forward for Iroquois. And we've read over the reports, and we see that there's lots of consideration being given to our partners in tennis, which is very important to our club, to listen to the tennis people as we work really closely with them. And I saw in the report that there is, you're going to be talking to the neighbors, and that's also really important to us. When we were working with Central Saanich for that conversion, we went and spoke to all the neighbors around that court before we were collaborative in that process. So I just wanted to tell you who we were, let you know that we support your project. We're really glad that you're considering it, and even though it won't work for us, because we do organized play with a lot more people, we're hoping that by being here and being supportive and getting to know all of you, that you'll help us build more courts on the peninsula in the near future and work together with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call for a third time if there's anybody else who'd wish to speak. Okay, not seeing any, I'll close public participation period. And I'll invite our presenter from the Saanich Peninsula Environmental Coalition to come forward. I'll welcome Bob Peart.
Hello, everyone. It's Bob Peart, so I'm the voluntary coordinator for Saanich Peninsula Environmental Coalition, and thank you for the invite to speak tonight. So my presentation will be in 2 parts. First, it'll be a brief overview of SPEC, who we are, what we're all about, etc. And the second will be an overview of the community meeting that we held on March 7th. So I understand these 2 documents are in your package, and so I'll be speaking to each of them. I haven't got any kind of fancy thing tonight. So referring to the RAC card, the copy of the RAC card that's in your package, we evolved out of the 2018 Sydney Summit. There was a recommendation from the summit to welcome the adoption of a Pan-Peninsula Integrated Management Plan for Habitat and Environment. And there was also a call for municipalities and community leaders to work together and advocate for such an approach. So a number of us took this recommendation to heart, and after a series of meetings with the 3 mayors, the MLA, and various community groups, we formed SPEC. And so now here we are 8 years later. Isn't that astounding? Holy crow. You just think life just happens, doesn't it? During that period of time, we've adopted a bioregional framework for the Saanich Peninsula. And we worked with you and your staff to get key elements of this framework incorporated into your OCP and other key documents. And I'd say we were moderately successful. And we thank you and your staff for that support. So in summary, who we are, we're a collaboration of peninsula-based, like-minded groups. Our key message is that nature doesn't recognize boundaries. And our work is focused on building public recognition of the importance of municipal collaboration if we're to conserve the environment, as recommended by the Sydney Summit. However, we all know that the OCP is a policy document. It's nice to have supportive wording, but without clear actions that measure and monitor outcomes, it's hard to determine whether progress is being made. So to this end, we launched into our second phase, which we call Checkup. And the March 7th community meeting, which is also in your package, March 7th community meeting was part of the checkup process. So before discussing the meeting, I want to thank the Mayor, Councillor Duck, Councillor O'Keefe, Councillor Garnett for attending the meeting, and I also want to thank the Mayor for his opening remarks. The purpose of the meeting, for those of you who weren't able to attend, was to update the community on SPEC's checkup efforts to date and to get public feedback on a number of key themes. The meeting was held in 2 parts. First, there was a series of presentations, and second, there was a facilitated workshop. Our research has identified 6 critical and interactive indicators that are important for achieving success if we're to have bioregional planning. These indicators are nature-based solutions and green infrastructure, living shorelines, tree canopy cover, landscape connectivity, healthy watersheds, agriculture and food systems. Each of these indicators are described in some detail in the meeting notes. The following points emerged from a recent analysis conducted by SFU. Climate is acknowledged in each of the OCPs, but to be successful in addressing climate change, it's better to have a pan-peninsula approach than municipal to municipal. Although ecosystems span municipal boundaries, there's an absence of shared ecological priorities, mapping frameworks, and spatial assessments. An example would be the work being done on natural assets inventory. While jurisdictional collaboration has been valued, it tended to happen on an informal case-by-case basis, so the environment is being addressed within the individual municipalities rather than through a coordinated framework. And it was clear that the community, from our workshop, it was clear that the community is frustrated with the policy versus practice gap. While municipalities generally have environmental policies in place, community residents experience a significant disconnect between what's written in the OCPs and what's actually happening on the ground. The feedback from the public at the workshops was quite clear. A coordinated approach to natural assets is expected. A renewed commitment by the mayors and councillors to return to the previous practice of meeting jointly on a regular basis. They were surprised at our workshop that this practice was no longer underway. Watershed health and living shorelines aren't separate issues, they need to be linked. And so the municipalities need to put more effort between the watershed work and the living shoreline work. Ecologically, they're connected. Our agricultural lands are absolutely crucial for both food and the environment, so the municipalities need to put a stronger emphasis on supporting the Peninsula and Area Agricultural Commission. As they're such important landowners, we need to continue working on improving the relationship with Victoria Airport Authority. And there was a recommendation or a sense that there's a need for establishment of an intermunicipal advisory body such as a Saanich Peninsula Environmental Advisory Commission. This body would guide jurisdictional collaboration and help ensure the three principles of bioregional planning are better reflected in environmental planning and management. So to conclude, the residents of the Saanich Peninsula have strong environmental values. They recognize the positive efforts that are being made given your limited capacity. However, they do expect the three local governments to collaborate more and work together to protect both the health of the peninsula and the health of its citizens. As our next steps, SPEC is preparing a final report that will summarize the information that we've received throughout our checkup process and some of the work we're discussing this evening. This report will be public and it will be circulated to each municipality. And in addition, over the summer months, we'll be developing our approach for the upcoming municipal elections in October and our expectations for each candidate and their attitude toward conserving the environment and the need for increased collaboration. So thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. If you want any more information about SPEC and our activities, please contact me, or you can find all our information at Place Speak. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I will look to the rest of the committee members if they have any questions they'd like to ask about this report. Ask Mr. Peart while he's here. Councillor O'Keefe, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, and thanks also for the opportunity to participate in that workshop. I found it very interesting, enlightening, and yeah, I came away with some good information from that, so thank you for that. You talked about your next steps, about a final report coming. When do you anticipate that being ready, and what additional information would be in that final report?
We'll have the final report by plus or minus end of June, early July.
Okay.
It's being we're working with Simon Fraser University on the drafting of that report, and a lot of the report will be built on the work that we got from Alexandra, who you met at the workshop. There won't be any kind of new information, but I think there will be a bit more detail, and it'll be presented in with some analysis and some research information.
Okay, great. And as part of that, would you see there being any specific recommendations for the three, or actually all the local governments on the Peninsula First Nations as well, in terms of what you would like to see moving forward, in terms of what the collaboration would look like? Is that something that might be included in that report?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more detailed in our report, but basically it'll be the framework will be what I was saying this evening about the need to collaborate more, and the expectation that the public have to do that, and the need for the mayors to begin to communicate more and talk about that, and the idea of the establishment of this advisory body.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so I'd be, maybe when the final report comes out, I'd be interested in hearing a bit more from you on, you know, what you would see in that advisory committee, and in terms of what its scope might be, or what role it could play in terms of supporting the local government. So
Yes.
I think that's a good start.
Yes, say we're just starting to put meat on the bones on
Yeah.
that, and so I'm curious as to what we're going to say as well.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think of other, you know, we have a accessibility committee,
Yeah.
which is a tri-municipal committee where we compare notes on accessibility issues and educate each other and the municipalities, and try to work together on these issues. So maybe some similar model.
That's,
Uh,
that's what we're thinking. We've got the terms of reference for that. There's the PAC, the Agriculture Committee. There's there are two or three, and we're going to be looking at their terms of reference and seeing what we think is appropriate from a membership point of view and whatever. So yes, that's exactly the direction we're going in.
Yeah, and just one more, if I may, Chair. Have you looked at, are there other municipalities in BC or maybe even in Canada that have sort of joint municipal committees that work on these sorts of things in the manner that you're, hoping?
Yeah, Alexandra, again, who's the person we've got at Simon Fraser University, she's done that research and she's looked into that. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but Alexandra's done that research, and
Okay,
I can get back to you on that if you want.
yeah, okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, and the report will be public, and the report will be distributed to each council and yourselves. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Novak.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Peart, for your presentation. It's the sort of thing that I don't think anybody can look unkindly at, and I certainly don't. But I'm curious. I'm the kind of person that wants to see where the rubber hits the road, kind of thing. And I sense from your presentation that we're still a ways from that, and that your report at the end of June, July will probably have more in the way of specifics. My question, or my request actually, is when I look at your logo or your title, you talk about protecting nature by building community. Those are two things that I can certainly wrap my head around. I think protecting nature is critically important. I don't think anyone will argue with that. And I think building community is also very important to many of us. I'm curious as to how you see the synergy between those two things, and how you actually intend to protect nature by building community. I'd like to hear a little more elaboration on that philosophy. I know this is probably not the best time for an extensive discourse on it, but perhaps you could give us the finer points.
Yeah, some of that is behind the thinking for who are members of SPEC. So SPEC are the very active environmental groups on the peninsula, like Peninsula Streams, Sea Change, Roberts Bay Residents, a number of the stronger groups. And so if we have our conversation, that's building community, and it's certainly we've been told that that approach is affecting the way those organizations deliver on their work. So that's part of the building community. We're also trying to build community through Place Speak, and the surveys we're doing, and the polling that we're doing on Place Speak. And that works towards building the community. And the organizations that we're working with are really knowledgeable about how important environmental health is for the public. And so there are a number of groups. The agriculture side is very, very important for the environment and for human health. So it's our conversations build a lot of that, and the community meeting that we had in March was very, very good for building community.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rintoul? No last speakers. All right, I'll take the opportunity then. I guess building on Councillor Novak's question, how many people who attend your meetings to date are landowners who have the properties that are affected? That would be kind of the ones you'd want to look at if you want to build. A lot of the, building corridors and actually targeting ecosystems of values. I'm thinking, seaside property, the farms. So, and I'll say that the background to this is that as somebody in government, I hear from people who don't own the properties that are under ESAs or have environmental values, that I need to do more to use the tools of the OCP and regulations to force those people to do better. But when I hear from those people, I hear that the OCP is already too restrictive and that they're usually, not wanting more. And so the people who actually have the power and whose property is actually affected have an opposite opinion to the people who come and ask us to do the things. And so I'm just wondering, as the next step in community building, is there an opportunity to actually build consensus with people who have those properties, so that, like, the pickleball people in the tennis association who came and said they finally kind of reached something that they can agree on, that we could actually have some way to agree on how to move forward? Because that, to me, is where the stumbling block actually is. Also, Peninsula Streams, that has been their main stumbling block in Sydney, was that landowners did not want them to do the things that Sydney was prepared to do. And so there's nothing we can do if the landowners don't want it. When SPEC first started, I remember speaking to somebody about the Habitat Acquisition Trust, at the Habitat Acquisition Trust, when they were starting a particular program. And Sydney, they kind of said, they looked at it, but Sydney was too urbanized. They were really targeting Colwood and Sook and things like that. But I'm wondering if they're another organization that you have talked to since then?
Oh yeah, we're in touch with HAT.
You're in it? Okay,
Oh yeah,
great.
and HAT isn't a direct member, but we're in conversations with HAT, and so I think that's true. And I think that on the Roberts Bay issue that you recognized, there were one or two landowners who were against, but the majority of people in Roberts Bay were in favor of that. And so I think that clarification is really important. As to so PROW is a member of SPEC. And that's the private residence on water. Am I close? Anyway, they're the people who own water on the ocean. And so PROW is part of our conversations. And so as we speak as a collaborative, we come to consensus as groups. We're not down at the landowner level, but we are trying to develop a consensus approach. And when we have conversations with individuals, I spent yesterday with about 2 hours with a farmer, and trying to talk about this and how it works with farming and how it works with agriculture. And so it was a very productive conversation. And so, yeah, we're reaching out, but again, we're a volunteer organization, no capacity, no budget. And so we're doing the best we can with the reason for why we were set up. So we were established to ensure the principles of bioregional planning were part of the OCP. So we spent 2 or 3 years working on that, developing the bioregional framework document. And as I said earlier, we were quite successful on that. But then our members and the community and people told us, well, we need to kind of just keep an eye on that and make sure that the principles as reflected in the OCPs are being delivered on. And that's what we're trying to do with Checkup, is just trying to just keep an eye on the OCP and making sure that if you said you'd do X, Y, and Z, are you doing X, Y, and Z or not? And the community meeting was really that kind of level of conversation. It wasn't a conversation with individual landowners at all. That isn't the level at which we operate.
Oh, I'm sorry, just when you said that the community workshops are, so the people at the workshops are all members of
Oh yeah.
a nonprofit already?
No, the
okay.
people at the workshop are people who live in the community.
Okay. But they're not, okay.
Sorry.
I know, well, this is what I'm asking, that there's the community who wants things to be done, and then there's the community who owns the land on which we want to do the things. And those people, do they ever come up and say, I have a property?
Well, they were the people
Do they-
attending.
Okay.
So the people at the workshop were people who live on the peninsula, live in the
On the land,
community.
the-
I'm not sure what you mean by the land. They own houses. If that's what you mean by on the land, they own houses. Some of them were farmers. Some of them were property owners on the ocean. Some of them they're people who live on the peninsula, who are part of the community.
No, I just want to make sure that when they ask me to make sure that I'm looking at environmental values along the waterfront, that the waterfront property owners are there. And you've answered that
Yes.
PROW is there. And that I just wish some of the other members of the Roberts Bay Association, the ones who dissented before, could be brought to the table, but maybe they never will.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks.
Hope that was helpful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Peart, for the presentation. Thanks for your leadership over the years in bringing new groups together. The ones that you named, and there's others as well.
Yeah.
Each of those organizations, many of them are longstanding, all of them doing good work in their own right, and to be able to bring them together the way you and others have, I think is quite remarkable. There's a collaboration, a significant collaboration there. Which helps us, to take greater notice of the efforts. But I also want to thank you and others for the professionalism that your consultants have displayed and performed. The presentation that many of us were able to attend was very impressive, and the reports that you've generated, whether it's the bioregional framework, whether it was the kind of legal scan that was done, or the work that most recently done. And curious, just in terms of the outcomes, I thought both the presentation component of that workshop, the presentation component of that gathering and then the workshop were effective. Unfortunately, all the elected had to leave for the second
Yeah.
table, but can you briefly describe what the outcomes or what was positive about those 6 or 7 tables that met on various issues?
Yeah, that's that work is detailed
Yeah.
in the appendix.
Yeah.
So each of those tables, there were 6 tables, and what we did was we asked for landscape conductivity, or for each of them was what's working well, what are the current challenges, and have you got suggestions for improving collaboration on the particular indicators, and so that's summarized, and a lot of that, Mr. Mayor, is again the summary that I gave, which is kind of at the bottom of page 6. A lot of that is kind of the where all those conversations came together. The feedback on the particular indicators is on pages 4 and 5, and there's some detail there. And if for members who want to know who the members of SPEC are, that's footnote 2 on page 2. And since then, we've added the new group, Friends of Sydney Parks. So we're pleased about that as well.
No. Thank you again for your leadership, and we look forward to that report coming
Good.
in early summer.
Good. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much. I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move along. We don't have any development applications, but we have staff report, 8A. And we will have Director of Engineering, Brian Murphy, introducing the Iroquois Park Tennis Court proposed pickleball court conversion trial.
Good evening, Chair and Committee. So we have a proposal that came forward through various local pickleball representatives to request that the town look at converting one of the tennis courts in the 2 tennis court facility at Iroquois Park to dedicated pickleball use. And so this would be for the east side tennis court, with a proposal to paint in lines for either 2 or 3 pickleball courts into the 1 tennis court, and leaving the second tennis court, the west side, for exclusive use for tennis, with a proposed retractable divider down the middle. And so we've at staff level have evaluated the proposal and are presenting our evaluation back to committee for some guidance. And so the things we want to look at in the discussion are first deciding between the 2-court proposal versus the 3-court proposal, noting that the Tennis Association has said they would support the 2-court proposal, but not the 3-court proposal at this time. And then, so the pickleball associations, we would, before proceeding, we would come up with an agreement to formalize their proposal and expectations, but they're proposing to fund the necessary conversions, so the painting of the lines and the mobile divider and some signage and relocating some benches. And so a significant concern will always be potential for noise concerns with pickleball. If it weren't for noise concerns, this would be a very straightforward proposal that we think everyone would be fully on board with. At the same time, we want to note that pickleball has been played in these tennis courts for many years. There is a very well-established hedge along the north side of the courts that does some noise screening. And so at the same, so currently we're not receiving complaints. We haven't received complaints. At the same time, this conversion would increase the usage and the number of people present, and so could result in more noise concerns. But that's part of the reason we propose this as a trial basis to do the conversion. We also propose to consult with the neighbors across the street on Ocean Avenue. So that leads to another question: would committee or council want to see that feedback from those neighbors before formally proceeding? One possible option would be if the feedback from the neighbors is receptive and open to proceeding with the trial, then staff could approve that if the feedback is generally positive. But if there's negative, if there's significant concerns, we'd be happy to bring it back to committee for further direction before finalizing any path forward. So so those are the proposals to do the conversion on a trial basis, and then report back to committee or council at the end of the trial for potentially converting permanently. So initially we propose to start with the 2-court option and then could look at the 3-court option down the road. If that has worked out, we propose to consult with the property owners across the street and then report back at the end of the trial period. Just to note that this proposal hasn't caused us to reopen the topic of new additional pickleball courts anywhere else in the town. We haven't looked at any of that or, opened that box up again. We've just looked at this specific proposal for converting one of the tennis courts at Iroquois into 2 or 3 pickleball courts. And there are various representatives here if you wish to invite them to answer any questions, or I can supplement what little else I know as well.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to the committee. Is there any questions for staff? Councillor Garnett, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start it off. 3 to staff. So if this were to proceed, when would you be looking to have the courts actually operational? Do you have a time frame in mind?
Through the chair to Councillor Garnett. So I believe we're proposing 2 or 3 weeks to consult with the neighbors, and then again, would those results need to come back to committee or council, or would staff approve based on what we see? There would be some lead time for ordering equipment, so I think we'd be looking at a minimum of a couple months, but and obviously their desire is to have this for this playing season, so as soon as possible, but I think realistically we're still a couple months away.
Thank you. Would there be any additional maintenance or operational costs to the town in terms of, repainting the lines, resurfacing the court, those kind of things, the arm of the net thing? So just wondering, over time, there would have to be some kind of cost, I imagine.
Through the chair, so that's something we should consider as part of a formal agreement that we prepare with the associations. So there's some potential crack sealing, if you will, in the court that we may want to do before making this conversion, but that's something the town would cover anyway. But yes, that it does raise the other question, which I wanted to mention was, so if we proceed with the conversion, if we do a formal agreement with the parties, should we, and what should we say about the invested sums of money should the town decide to not approve a permanent conversion? So if the pickleball associations are paying for the conversions and equipment on a trial basis, what happens if at the end of the trial or at any point in the trial we say, hey, this isn't working, we need to go back to the way it was? Who are those costs lost by the pickleball association? Does the town cover any of the restoration? It's not an easy question. It's but something better to think about now than later. And in addition, long-term maintenance. Who's responsible if the net gets torn, or for repainting the lines down the road?
Great, thank you. And I know there were questions asked earlier about because the one letter had mentioned reservations, but this is meant to be an open court, open play. There wouldn't be a reservation system that staff would have to be overseeing or anything like that.
So through the chair, yes, the current is open play.
Perfect. And the retractable curtain, the picture that's provided here, I realize that might not be what we're going to use, but are we talking something that would be like netting, or are we talking something similar to what's in the tennis bubble at Panorama?
Through the chair, this might be a better question for Mr. Harrigan, who proposed this particular divider. It's installed somewhere, I believe, in Vancouver. We haven't finalized the details of it, and I'm not familiar with what's at Panorama.
Yeah, the one at Panorama is like almost like a thick shower curtain, so it actually is a bit of a sound buffer, and it does help in that regard. So if it's something like that, it could help on that side. And so are we talking about something where there would be two sides that would come to the middle? Trying to visualize it, so.
Yes, so my understanding.
Yeah.
Do you want us to?
Well, I believe, do they need to be
Yeah,
invited?
if you'd like to,
Yep.
please step to the microphone, you can answer that question.
Have to invite first.
Oh,
wait,
I guess we need a motion to invite you first, so,
I
Mayor
make a
McNeil-Smith.
motion to invite the various representatives from the associations as council wishes.
Second.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor? It's unanimous. Now you may go ahead.
I'm Brian Harrigan at the.
So if you just push the button, perfect.
I'm Brian Harrigan. Hi. I should have introduced myself earlier. I'm with the Victoria Regional Pickleball Association, and we've been around for 25 years. We have 1,200 members, and we've been working with communities to establish pickleball courts and venues and activities. And so we're really pleased to be able to come and work with Cindy, and work as well with Dave and the Tennis Association. Him and I had some good conversations, and we've had some good conversations about, what it's like being very close neighbors, and what we'll have to do in order to make that work. So if we get to a stage, when we hopefully get to a stage where we're negotiating an agreement, I would like to get more of Dave's feedback. The net you're talking about, my understanding, and Howard may be able to help me, is that it's a heavy netting thing, but it's netting as opposed to fencing, with a clip in the middle, and is it?
There's a wire that goes
A
from.
wire that, yeah, so it's,
Two nets,
yeah.
and they're 60 feet long each.
Two nets 60 feet long each. I'll repeat that for the microphone thing.
Right.
If I may, Chair, the portable nets, and it mentions in here storage, and doesn't say anything in the financial breakdown about where they would be stored?
I think the idea is that they will be stored on site, similar to the multi-sports box
Right, okay. Like the
idea
tube,
there.
yeah.
Yep, yeah,
Okay.
just tubes that we put, and that's what they do at the new multi-sports facility in central Saanich.
Okay.
So they go up and down, and that obviously avoids the putting in the hard poles and
Okay, so,
they're reasonably priced, those nets. They're not.
I just have two more, Chair. So, as far as the design on option A, and I'm assuming it's set up like that, so it leaves room for that third court to be if it is in the future. Given the tennis individuals in attendance and the letter we received about them not really happy about 3, I'm looking at the designing, wondering if I know you want to leave room for 3 if 3 is a possibility, but given the letter and the opinion of the tennis group, if it wouldn't be better to move everything 5 feet more to the east just to create that other level of separation. And I realize you'd have to go back and readjust the painting lines for 3 courts, but if it is only going to be 2, then creating an extra 5 feet of distance from the tennis players, I think, would be advantageous.
Through the chair, absolutely. That's one of the thoughts. The other option might be to paint it where the east side third court would go instead of the west side third court. So shift, mirror what you see there.
Okay, that's great. And I just have one last question. And it's because it doesn't appear in the report, and it's only because I've been following North Saanich. I've been following a lot. I even went to meetings and watched sound studies proposed, like 2024, July 8th, I think, was at the meeting for there. And it was done at Carnarvon, and it's about acoustic panels. So knowing what we know about what's gone on in other communities around this issue, we are, I think, in a really beneficial position to be able to make decisions where we don't have to go down those roads and have those issues arise in our community. So it seemed from the information that was provided at that meeting from the Carnarvon study that the acoustic panels make a rather large difference. I think they said it drops it like half for sound or something was the number they gave, like 8 decibels or something. And I'm wondering if, it could be emotion arising, but I'm wondering, does staff see value in, I know this is a trial if it goes through till the fall of 2027, but I would rather have that information and be willing to roll that out if we can make it work when we get to that stage, rather than saying, okay, now we've gotten here, should we look at acoustic panels? I would rather have us investigate the costs, if the organizations are willing to contribute, how we can adjust our financial plan, because there is a placeholder in 2030 for pickleball for 250,000, I think. So there's 125 out of the Growing Communities Fund, I believe, and so, or not Growing Communities, but the gas tax fund, that we could shift forward maybe and adjust something else. Is that something that staff would be willing to entertain?
Through the chair, so absolutely, yes. I think the way we were looking at this was with the existing hedge. We'd like to give that a chance first. The only hesitation is cost, of course, right? The acoustic panels, and I have no idea what their cost is.
There was an estimate of 35,000, but that was in 2024, so I'm sure it's higher now.
Okay.
And I would also indicate that having gone out there to the old site that's been decommissioned this weekend, there is a hedge and tree line there as well. It's not as dense as what's in Iroquois Park, but I think they probably thought that would buffer sound, and apparently it didn't. So, yeah.
If I could just make a quick addition, I think the $35,000 number, and you're right, it was a 2024, but it envisioned fully enclosing the thing. Given that that probably wouldn't be necessary given the configuration.
Yeah, I think it was 3 sides leading up the field side.
So
open,
this might
need
might be 3 sides or 2.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know. I'm thinking of the dog park as well, right? And not just the residents on Ocean, but having a dog park within close proximity. I think that particular side is going to be necessary too. But I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor O'Keefe, I have you next.
Thank you. I'll start maybe through you to staff. I just wanted to, we did have some email communication late this afternoon about the last report that we got from staff on this in November 2021. And I just wanted to re-articulate those things because I think that's important for council to refresh our memory. Some members of council weren't on council in 2021, and for the benefit of the public. So if I may, I just thought I'd I'd rattle off some of those things that came from the report, and if you could just confirm that I've understood that correctly. So this was a staff report in November 22nd, 21, where council had asked staff to, we were in the thick of looking at, where could we fit in pickleball somewhere? And part of that staff did, I recall, is looking at what was going on in other municipalities. So some of the highlights that I took away from that report was that there was 3 parks, Brethar, Iroquois, and Talista, that would be considered. And then staff had looked at some guidelines for pickleball that came from Saanich. And based on those, that information from Saanich was that we not develop pickleball courts within 50 meters of neighboring homes unless major sound abatement is installed. So that was one thing. They identified that Iroquois Park was 30 to 40 meters away from residences, so it wouldn't be a good location for pickleball without significant noise abatement. And then where I think we landed the staff recommendation at that time was that staff were going to look into a trial that was going on at Tolmie Park on acoustic panels. So getting to Councillor Garnett's view about learning from others, so that we were going to get the results of the acoustic panel review to see how that might work. And from my understanding is that we didn't get a chance to do that yet. So just wanting just to confirm that I've captured some of those points accurately.
Through the chair, so yes, that report, all those recommendations were, of course, long before my time with the town. So, with this proposal, we weren't opening up the full topic again. So, if staff was bringing forward a recommendation, or if there was a project in the budget to build new pickleball courts, it would come with all of that analysis, right? All of that, what are the best practices, what are other communities finding, what we see communities building and then unbuilding pickleball courts, right? And we don't want to be in that position. So what are the best practices? What have the other municipalities learned? This proposal is brought forward simply as somewhere where there is already pickleball being played. And so the proposal is simply to increase the amount of pickleball being played. So pickleball is played there almost every day in this court. So we haven't gone to the extent of the same level of study that we would go to if we were bringing forward a new location. Again, fully aware that other locations or other municipalities are installing and requiring the acoustic paneling, so I would say that's the best practice. However, comes with a significant cost, and we don't have a staff. The town council does not have a budget item for significant investment in pickleball in 2026 or 27 or 2028. So that's not an analysis that we did, and I don't know the association's ability to fund something of that magnitude as well.
Okay, thanks for that. Just a couple other questions. In regards to the budget that has been proposed by the proponents, has that budget been, I guess what I'm wondering is, town staff are the ones that create our budgets, and presumably there's certain standards or things that the town would be looking at if it's going to be on our property. So have we had a chance to review the budget that they've proposed, and based on what we need to do in terms of procurement and certain standards. Is that budget reasonable, do you think?
Through the chair, so the budget appears reasonable, but we haven't reviewed the details, the specifics. That's something we would do if we are proceeding, if we're moving forward, if we're signing a formal agreement to implement the project. Then we would go through line by line and equipment by equipment to make sure that we're satisfied. But in general, the numbers certainly appear reasonable as far as we can tell.
Okay. And so would the work be done by a contractor or town staff? And I guess all I'm trying to get a handle on here is how much work is going to be involved for our town staff, because even though the proponents or the organizations have said we'll pay for it, it still seems to me that staff would have to be involved if there's procurement that has to take place, managing contracts, that kind of thing. So how do you see us being involved in that?
Through the chair, so yes, an excellent point in that this is our asset and we would want to make sure that any work done in it is done correctly. So we would have an oversight role for sure. The line painting is done by a contractor. Installing the mobile divider, we would probably have our crews assist with that, just to make sure that's done correctly. So I would definitely see, I don't see an enormous amount of work, but I would see certainly there's at least a day of effort for staff to set this up.
Okay, thanks for that. And then just going to the trial, you know, if this were to move ahead and we're looking at a trial period until the fall of 2027, which to me is seems like a pretty lengthy trial period, especially if we start to get feedback from residents. And so I'm wondering what options will we have for an off-ramp if after the first month, you know, residents having 2 pickleball courts being used all the time, if this complaints start pouring in, what opportunity will we have to say, you know what, this just isn't working? And what would be the standard that we'd be looking at to say this isn't going to work?
Through the chair, so yes, it was the proposed timeline for the trial was struggled with that one a little bit because this fall is too soon. Then wanted to give it enough time to make sure that everything's lined up before turning permanent. But yes, certainly also had the thoughts around. Yes, it wouldn't be, there's no guarantee that we would make it to the end of the trial if there are significant issues, and that's something we would write into the agreement, is that we would have to have the right to amend or cancel the agreement at any point if there are significant issues. At the same time, I would want to, I know for certain that the pickleball associations are invested in having this be successful and have promised, and again we would write in that they will want to cooperate to ensure that this is successful and that concerns are mitigated as best they can during the trial period, so that it has the best chance of success. But yes, if so, the stages of conflict resolution, if you will, would be if there are complaints, we would try and work with the pickleball associations to resolve those, and but then if we're facing insurmountable challenges, we would always look for, okay, what's the next option? Is the next option to put in acoustic paneling, and can the pickleball association fund that, and are they willing to fund that? And then yes, at some point would either have to be, if we can't find resolutions, would either have to be a staff decision or bring it back to committee for discussion on possibly ending the program, the conversion. At the same time, that's again why there's this question of if the Pickleball Association funds this conversion, are they facing that loss, and are they fully aware, and they're getting more aware as we talk, that if it's not successful, there's no recovery of those funds from the town, and there are some restoration costs that also should be considered.
Right, okay, thanks for that. Then one more, if I may, I think, I'm pretty sure. Getting to engagement, and so in order to, maybe head off or find out what the concerns are ahead of time, instead of just looking at the residents, in the surrounding area, did we consider a broader engagement, such as we did with the dog park, recognizing it's not just the neighbors who are impacted, it's the people who are using that park, the people, the soccer club that use the adjacent field. And I don't know whether pickleball, the noise of it affects, I don't know. But, the dog park that's going to be adjacent to there, I recall a few months ago when North Saanich was looking for a place to put pickleball, and they were considering Cy Hampson Park. And they got a lot of feedback from dog owners that they didn't feel like a pickleball court was a good place to put there. So I'm just wondering if that's something that we had considered for our engagement.
Yeah, looks like Mr. Edwards is going to take that one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you to Councillor O'Keefe, I would like to take the moment to remind you that there are 2 pickleball courts there currently. And so it's not as though this is a brand new idea. The pickleball court in the Iroquois tennis court has been in place since 2016. And the Sport Box pickleball court is also active court too. And so I just want to be really crystal clear that we're not talking about something like a brand new activity. We're talking about a trial run of adding one additional court. And so I don't think it's going to be something as concerning as you might make, or you might think it might be for the community.
Oh, thanks for the comment. I guess what I think is that it's worth considering. While I appreciate that there has been a pickleball court operating there, it sounds to me like we're increasing what had been there in the past, or am I not understanding correctly?
That is correct, but I just wanted to make sure, because the way it sounded like things were being characterized as though this was all net new, and so I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that this is one additional court, but it's not a new service in this area.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so my concern is the impact of additional.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all for me. Thanks.
Councillor Novak, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Question through you to staff. The recommendation number 3 states that at the completion of the trial period, that there will be an assessment of noise impacts. Could you give us a little bit of an idea of just what that noise assessment would look like? Would it be strictly anecdotal from passersby, residents? Would there be any way of measuring noise impacts before and after with, for example, a decibel meter, recognizing, of course, that we're on a flight path at Iroquois Park, directly overhead, and we're also on the route that the town vehicles, some quite heavy, make on a multiple times per day route to the public works yard. And as was previously noted, we have existing pickleball courts, tennis courts. We will have a dog park which will generate noise. So I'm a little concerned that this whole thing hinges on noise measurements when I'm not convinced that we really have the tools to adequately measure the noise differential between what occurs right now in that park, in that space, and what will occur with the addition of one incremental pickleball court? Perhaps you could give us some confidence that we will be able to measure all this.
Through the chair, so at this point, we would anticipate that a noise assessment would be more observational than quantitative. There are some ways to measure quantitatively, but we're not experts in any of those, and if needed, we would research over the year and a bit. All the neighborhood characteristics that Councillor Novak mentions are accurate and valid, and then that there are other noise generators in the area. This is really intended to say that if we had been receiving a lot of complaints, we would advise council or committee of that. Staff observations, if we were observing that for whatever reason there appeared to be a significant increase in noise or usage compared to what we're seeing now, and in relation to all the other characteristics of the neighborhood, we would present those, but it was not an intention to do a scientific analysis because there are so many variables in that.
And I guess that's my concern, that that an anecdotal analysis of noise factors before and after the change are not only not significant, but they're not reliable as indicators to us, to council, as to whether or not the project or the trial is successful or not. And I'm not convinced that
Point of order, please.
sorry.
Following the question, its motivation on a particular aspect of the proposal.
Okay, I'll let it go there, Chair.
There.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for staff? Go ahead.
Actually, thank you. I have, through you, Chair, I have a question for Mr. Harrigan. Thank you for your correspondence today that reaffirmed that this is an initiative of the Victoria Regional Pickleball Association, VRPA, and as per the drawings, we understood where the netting is with the current tennis net and the screening is proposed. My question is, we've seen in at least the last few years the technology of paddles change, and there's all sorts of numbers out there in terms of how quieter they are and that sort of. My question is, I don't know if there's any statistics out there, so this may be anecdotal. Is there are players gravitating to the paddles? Are 50% of the players playing with those paddles?
I mean, I think the answer is yes, they are. In what numbers, I couldn't tell you, but I could find out. I could see if there's information about that. I mean, the most common one is the one that was developed by the fellow in Oak Bay, right? And it's been very successful. And but I'd be happy to dig that up, and if that would be.
If it's available, this
Yeah.
Tonight's committee meeting will be going to council next week. But
Yeah.
I mean, I've noticed, and this is very anecdotal. Passing Iroquois Park, some players do play with those paddles. And
For
you
sure.
can, you can
and
hear it.
You
is
can
quieter.
tell the difference. Yeah. If I mean, maybe that's one of the solutions down the road, to make it a soft paddle preferred facility or something like that. I don't, it's difficult to mandate stuff like that, but maybe there's opportunities.
Yep. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just add a couple of more things? Is that out? Okay.
Yeah, if there's more information you'd like to provide committee.
Sure.
Sure.
About the concerns about adding an additional pickleball court, I mean, the reality is sometimes we end up on 2 pickleball courts anyway. The pickleball people move over onto the tennis court, right? Because they're waiting, and it just speaks to the demand for the thing. And I mean, Dave raises a good point that there are different courts, they're for different purposes, and part of our plan is to have different signage and that, but the reality is the demand is there. We will do our best we've got newsletters and we've got people and we've got contacts. At the end of the day, these are not going to be people who are who may not be members of our association. So I'm not 100% sure what we can do other than sort of moral suasion, but we will certainly do that. I mean, this will be our resources that we're putting up, so we want to make sure it works.
Thank you. I see one second-time speaker. Do I have any other first-time speakers? I will go then just before you go. I go to Councillor Novak for a second time, just to follow up on your. That is what we'd heard from the tennis club before. Is that it was the nets were being damaged by pickleball players who were weighting them down. So I imagine that would be
true.
why they would support having your dedicated space. Is that perhaps the budget item for the signage then? Does that include, is that just to mark them as pickleball courts, or does it also include, a little bit about the etiquette you're talking about? I mean, we currently have things like that on the tennis courts, but is there a potential to have?
I'm sorry, I realize I'm going deaf. I didn't.
No worries. The $300 fund for signage,
Yes.
is that just to sign which ones are pickleball courts, or does it also include
meant
etiquette?
to say, these are tennis courts, these are pickleball courts, and stop. Yeah, make sure they're established and used for the right purpose.
Great, thank you. And is there, I don't know, I can see Mr. Murphy is nodding as well about, is there kind of defined etiquette you've worked out with the tennis club to date that would be included on there as point items, or is it something that could be worked out
I think
about?
that's for sure. We would work with them. That would be our goal. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Novak for a second time? No?
Just saying, if there were more questions, I'd be happy to read in the recommendation.
Councillor Garnett, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Just because it popped to my mind, I'm assuming that if we create these dedicated courts, that the lines on the other court will be removed? So that it would be difficult for somebody to go and play on there unless they imagine where the lines are. So, yeah, the pickleball, on the west side, it has pickleball lines.
Pickleball courts and a tennis court
Yeah,
on one side.
right,
Tennis only on the other.
yeah.
So there'd be no need to change anything on the tennis court side if you're putting a curtain down and putting 2 courts or whatever configuration you end up doing on the other side.
Oh, this is a lengthy answer. Can you please
But
approach the
just,
podium and repeat it, just so
sorry.
that people listening on the web will
If
be
I
able to
may,
hear?
Chair.
Go ahead.
Just, as far as there's pickleball lines on the west court, which is what we're not going to be using for pickleball. So I'm just assuming those lines would be removed if we're just using pickleball on the east side, correct?
I'll allow Mr. Murphy to answer that
Yeah,
first. Thank you.
please, thank you.
Well, I'll defer to the tennis people if I may, but my understanding is there are not pickleball lines
Correct.
on the west court.
Yeah.
That's where they
The
are.
west.
They're on the west side. I was just there, so.
Other west.
Okay,
Yeah,
they're on the west and not the east.
yeah.
So then there would be some removal costs.
That's what I just want to clarify, because we're talking about pickleball players going over to use another court, but if there's no lines there, if they're gone, that would kind of be weird. Although I do see where the net has gone down on that court. So
Quite a
that's-
bit.
Yeah, quite a bit. Thank you for stepping up, because I was going to ask you a question. Because you're the only one who's not provided any input. So I would like to hear from you as the tennis representative. Is there anything here you haven't heard that you think should be addressed?
Well, I
that you
think
have
council has
concerns
done
over?
a tremendously commendable job tonight, asking the right questions about how to proceed. We as a tennis club and an organization are supportive of a conversion, because right now the pickleball tennis court set is really not functional. Tennis people don't even go because the net on that side has been so badly damaged that we would rather see a separation of 2 courts for the pickleball and let them enjoy their play, and leave the tennis court alone as it is. Also, the signage, there was a question about signage, and the signs that exist currently at Centennial Park that we were helpful in getting put up by the Central Saanich people basically says pickleball tennis on this section, tennis only on this section, and it's real simple. I don't think you're going to have people reading a whole bunch of lists of what you can do and what you can't. So I would keep signage very simple. I would keep the layout very simple. That's why we are supporting a two-court conversion, eliminating the tennis lines and putting it on now. So if we're talking, if the current court is the east court that has the tennis court and the pickleball court, we would be supportive of that being the court that is converted, because we also have a backboard on the west court that our members and tennis players use when they're just practicing. So the cost of conversion to do all this mixing around would be much easier to just simply take the court that currently exists as a or a dual court and convert it into the two courts. Our biggest concern about anything greater than that is the volume of play on the court. Noise, soft paddles or not, is not so much the issue, but the volume of people interacting with a court in such close proximity, even if you do have a curtain or a divider between them. So we are supportive and would be fully on board on signing a two-court conversion, and I do appreciate your desire to go through a trial so that we have actual evidence that whatever you do in the end has been documented, tested, and confirmed. And so we're here to say we appreciate your attention to this. We think it'll solve some problems for the tennis community who will start to use the other court, because the tennis court often has chalked lines with pickleball courts, and the tennis court net is also stretched on the other side, which is why our members don't go down to use it anymore, because the facility is really not usable for tennis. And with that, unless there's any other questions, I'd like to.
No, I appreciate that very much, and if staff can just confirm, we flip-flop that from west to east then, because I think he's, yeah, the east side is where the tennis practice part is, and, yeah.
Yes, so we should either, if we're moving the recommendation, we
Right.
should either change that to the west court, or we could just say one of the tennis courts, and
Okay.
we'll sort it out in the field.
Great, thank you for the clarity. Thank you very much thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Novak, if you'd like to go forward with your motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move the recommendation, and as Director Murphy stated, I'll simply change the east to west. Is that correct? Yes.
And if I may, the Victoria Regional Pickleball Association instead of South Island Pickleball Association, per our Mr. Harrigan's letter.
Victoria VRPIPA. Okay, great. All right. The staff report recommends, and I so move, that a trial conversion of the west tennis court at Iroquois Park to 2 dedicated pickleball courts, option A, be approved subject to consultation with adjacent properties and the execution of a funding and expectations agreement with the Victoria Regional Pickleball Association, confirming full project funding by the pickleball community and outlining usage expectations and trial restoration obligations. And 2, that staff be directed to undertake consultation with property owners on Ocean Avenue across from the tennis courts. And 3, that staff report back to council at the completion of the trial period with an assessment of noise impacts and user experience, and provide a recommendation whether the conversion should be made permanent and potentially expanded to 3 pickleball courts.
Do you have a second?
Second for discussion.
Go ahead. I'll look to the.
Point of privilege.
Go ahead.
Can I ask the chair that these be split, please?
Accepted. Do we need to read them, or we can just do we need a seconder for each independently, or we can just move ahead with those? Okay. Then we'll go ahead with just as though we are debating or discussing just item 1, and I will look to the mover for motivation.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, it's extremely gratifying to see that there's such a large number of people that are actively engaged, not only in pickleball, but in tennis and that the community from surrounding areas is coming into Sydney to help support the evolution of the pickleball program here. I, for one, think that this is a great project. I'm very appreciative of the fact that the association or the organization, I'm not quite sure how to phrase that properly, is prepared to undertake the most significant of the costs, as the typical capital costs of the lines, the nets, the curtains, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that shows a tremendous amount of confidence in that what they're proposing is a legitimate solution to the problem of the shortage of pickleball courts in the area, and the fact that there's significant numbers of people that want to play pickleball and can't, simply because we don't have the facilities. They either have to go outside of town or elsewhere. So I'm very happy to support this. The fact that it's a trial makes it even more acceptable to support, because we do know that if things do go south, then all parties have agreed from the get-go that we'll simply back away from it. But I, for one, think that this will be a successful project and will certainly help the sports community to achieve their goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garnett is the seconder.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the Tennis Association and the Pickleball Association for coming tonight and answering questions and providing some input. In 2021, that was part of the problem for me, was tennis players. I knew the courts were used and there was an argument that they weren't. So I appreciate you coming forward to provide some input, and that's really important. I also think it's important to, when we talk about noise and we're talking about one extra court, I think the difference between what we provide now and what will be provided are these, and the key word is dedicated. So once they're dedicated pickleball courts, these will be used all the time, guaranteed, because of what Councillor Novick just said. There's a demand. So they will be used far more than now, because the multi-sport court at Iroquois, there's daycare kids on, there's basketball, there's lots of people use that sport for or that court for lots of uses. So it will have an impact. And I'm willing to support this moving forward. I think staff has laid out a good plan. I think the fact that both organizations are working together and are willing to work together to come to an agreement that works for both parties, I think is important. That was missing last time in 2021. And I do acknowledge Councillor O'Keefe's concerns about the noise and what we had discussed back in the day, being around for that. And having followed this a lot at watching North Saanich meetings, I think the acoustic panel is part of it. And I will have a motion arising coming after. I think that's an important piece that we need to have in place if we need it. I think we need to be prepared for something that could go bad, and have a way to get around it if possible, and as opposed to approaching it at that point in time. I think it's important that we have the information with us. So I'll leave my comments to there and listen to the rest of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Rintoul, Councillor McNeil-Smith, or Mayor McNeil-Smith after.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move an amendment to the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The section starting subject to in the motion, part 1, which I would amend to read, subject to consultation with adjacent properties and the approval by council of a funding and expectations agreement. So I am inserting into the motion approval by council of a, and removing the word execution. So I'll just check to see if that's been recorded.
Can you please repeat that?
I will. So starting where it reads subject to in section 1 of the motion, the amendment would read subject to consultation with adjacent properties and the approval by council of a funding and expectations agreement. You're removing the word execution.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that amendment? Nobody liked that. I'll second it.
Thank you. If I can speak to it then, if it's been seconded.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly, I really appreciate seeing the tennis community and the pickleball community working together on this, and the willingness of the pickleball community to financially support the endeavor. So I'm supportive of the option A. What struck me is that this, the manner in which we've had this discussion this evening, there are elements of this which feel very premature to me, and that's around the operational side. That's not the responsibility of council or this committee to work out those fine details. But frankly, my colleagues had a number of very good questions about what this looks like in practice, operationally. And so I think to be fully transparent to council, which is a body which commonly approves contracts that the town enters into, that council have the opportunity to review the document, again from the lens of some of the questions that my colleagues were asking, because I feel like it's very important that, and not that I distrust staff to get us to that place, but I think it's very important that the elected leaders in this community are going to stand by an agreement. Likewise, the Pickleball Association is going to have to stand by in the event that this has to be walked back. And the financial commitment that's there from your organization and your members that we're somewhat subject to being party to as well. So I think it's incumbent on council to see that agreement and be comfortable with it. Because it's feeling a little rushed to me. I get the season is short, but I also get we're graced with a mild winter here, and we see people playing pickleball year round. So I hope that the time that this injects into the process would be time well spent. So I'll pause there with respect to my motivation, Chair.
Thank you. Well, and as the seconder, I'll say I seconded this because I concurred. I've already heard from one councillor they had a motion arising. I had one written down. I imagine we had questions from staff regarding seeking more direction from council on what would be in this agreement. And so I would rather have that agreement fleshed out rather than have council sit here and point by point add to a document, and have staff actually go forward with that document with kind of the broad outline of council's direction tonight, and then actually come back with those details at a later date for us to finally approve. And so I'll turn to my colleagues and see if there's any further discussion on the amendment. Okay, Councillor Novak, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I won't be supporting this amendment, and I think Councillor, the mover of this amendment, said it quite clearly that it's not usually the purview of council to get into the nitty-gritty of operational details. I'm quite satisfied with the way this has been presented to us. I think our staff have sufficient expertise and resources to create an agreement that is going to work for all parties involved. Again, this is a trial. It's not the final contract. I think if council really wanted to get involved at that level, then it should be if and when this trial becomes a definitive agreement. At that point, yeah, then I agree. Then I think council should be perhaps involved in the details of the contract. But at this point, we want to get the show on the road. We want to get the trial underway and see whether or not the trial is going to be successful, so that we can then perhaps flesh out the details in a little, a little more completely. But right now, I think it's unnecessary. It's simply adding, it's adding an administrative overhead to this project that was never considered and just isn't needed. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor O'Keefe speaking next.
Thank you. I don't know whether I'll support the overall motion, but if I was going to support something, it would be with this amendment. In terms of other agreements we have with other organizations, we have delved into details somewhat to have MOUs with different organizations that we have agreements with, and I think it's a reasonable thing to do at this time, especially when this, to me, is a very I think it's a high-risk endeavor just based on what we have heard has happened in other communities with pickleball. And I think it's important for us to have a well-crafted agreement from the get-go so that there's less opportunity or for misunderstanding, as the mover of the amendment suggested, you know, letting it be clear to the association that's going to be funding this what potentially could happen if we have to walk this back. And I think those things need to be spelled out for everyone in order for, if a trial goes forward, for there to be clear to everyone what the guidelines are. So I would support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor McNeil-Smith?
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions. I'll first state that I agree with separating the motion for a number of reasons, one or two of which I'll mention now. But I would seek clarification from the mover on the amendment, and that is by inserting approval by council. There are actually two things that council would be considering if staff were to move forward on this recommendation in itself. That is the consultation with adjacent neighbors, what the feedback comes back from that, and the opportunity to see the agreement. That's the intention?
My intent was to move an amendment to part 2 of this, which would include a report back to council following that process of consultation with immediate neighbors. So it would have addressed it further in point 2.
Thank you. So it would have addressed it, but if it's approval by council, if it's going to be coming back just within the first motion, then council in essence would be considering the consultation and would be considering the agreement.
Yeah, that wasn't the interpretation I had. My reference was specifically approval by council of a funding and expectations agreement. So it had been my intent that first motion, as amended, refers to the agreement itself, and I was going to address the consultation in part 2. However, I'm open to how we may choose to interpret the motion, because ultimately I'm looking to address both.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I have a question for staff. And so this motion without the amendment had a subject to consultation with adjacent property owners. So a subject to clause like that within the paragraph is an indication that it would come back to council. Because subject to otherwise would be interpreted as subject to staff's decision based on, and normally we would interpret it as subject to council's review of the engagement. So I did ask the question in terms of clarification, but for me, within the motion was already a subject to consultation that would have brought it back to council. What was opposing that, and the reason I'm supportive of separating the motions, is because the third motion says that staff report back to council the completion of the trial period, which is counter to coming back after subject to consultation. Could staff perhaps clarify what the intent of the subject to consultation in part 1 was?
Through the chair, so the subject to was, again, only looking at this from the perspective of efficiency and wanting to get the trial underway sooner rather than later, if approved. Subject to was, my interpretation was, if we didn't receive any significant objections from the neighbors, then we could approve that at staff level to proceed to the through the funding agreements and through the agreements. But the intention was, if we were receiving concerns from the neighboring properties, that would more appropriately come back to councillor committee, but certainly welcome your clarity and your direction to bring it back either way.
Thank you, and with that interpretation, which I think you made reference to in your introduction, so thank you, does align with part 3 of the overall recommendation. And so I'm in favor of. Well, sorry, I have one more question, and this is getting into the weeds a bit, but all of us know that there are houses on one side of Ocean. And the second part says that a consultation with property owners on Ocean Avenue across from the tenants' courts. So there are rather few houses or properties just across. Would we be serving surveying the person at the corner that's near 100 meters away? So it's in any event, it's a relatively small, but could staff indicate what their intention was?
Through the chair, so the intention as written was literally across the ones who would be directly exposed to the noise, thinking that their houses would screen anyone behind them. But we had discussed internally a 100-meter radius as another approach, and again, would certainly welcome committee direction on that.
Okay, so I'm not going to be supportive of the amendment because I support the original intention of staff consulting with neighbors, and unless there was significant concern, which would then have staff bring it back, staff would proceed with the execution of that. So on the two parts that I made reference to, clarified with the mover of the amendment that there would really be two things coming back to council. One is hearing back on the on the engagement, and the second is the agreement. On the second part, I don't feel a need to see the particulars of the agreement. Yes, council does review a number of agreements. We certainly review more complex agreements than what this would look like. An agreement with Washington State Ferries for the ferry terminal is a rather significant agreement. This is not an insignificant agreement because the Pickleball Association is putting up funds to support this. But I also have comments on the main motion, but I'll leave my comments to the amendment at this time. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions and not seeing any response from the mover, I'll simply call a question then on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment as worded? That's 3, Councillor O'Keefe, Councillor O'Toole, and myself. And those opposed? 3, Councillor Novak, Councillor Garnett, Mayor McNeil-Smith. And so that is tied, it's a fail, right? Yeah. The motion is defeated. I will then move back to the main motion, and I still had 2 people for discussion upon the main motion, and Mayor McNeil-Smith, you still had the floor for that.
Thank you. And I want to, as colleagues have, I want to thank the representatives from 3 associations, the Victoria Pickleball Association, the Peninsula Community Association, which has consulted with the town on a number of times prior to bringing this forward, and to the Tennis Association, thank you, and to Mr. Halpenny, who was one of the first to contact the town and bring forward initiative, and all were receptive to coming together to discuss this. Which, quite frankly, in the proposals that councils before us, because there was more than one council before us that had requests from various pickleball folks that we do this. The current situation, those courts aren't working as intended. They were built as tennis courts. Tennis was accommodating to agree to allow. There was the painting of the pickleball lines on one court. There was likely the expectation at that time that, fair play, if you will, the tennis folks would use the tennis court and the pickleball, but we're seeing otherwise, where, quite frankly, the tennis players are having their play disrupted based on that. This is a remedy to that, with the associations being in agreement with each other, and the Mr. Halpenny, who is a player at large, if we can describe him that way, not part of one of the associations. And so I see this as a reasonable step forward. In terms of the increase in pickleball play and that leading to significant concerns, there's a possibility. That's a noisy road. It's a noisy area with planes flying over on a regular basis. I played tennis there for a number of years. I don't presently. And you have other uses within the park. And so I think, and sorry, this was through correspondence, through another colleague asking questions today. But there have not been complaints by the neighbors for the current level of pickleball that is being played or has been played over the past 10 years in the court. So I think the staff have worked well with the representatives from the organization and the individual, and I think this is a good path forward, and that we will hear from, when the trial period is over, we want to hear from the tennis folks, we want to hear from the pickleball folks, both of those players who are members of the association and those who are not members of the association and prefer open play, as well as the neighbors as they may choose to, or other users of the park as they may choose to provide input. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor O'Keefe, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm not comfortable with this moving forward at this time. I think pickleball is great. I know it's keeps people active and healthy, and I would love for us to be able to accommodate it in Sydney. My concern continues to be about the noise, and despite the comments that there's been pickleball going there, am I making too big of a deal about this? My information is based on the staff report that says that doing this is likely to result in increased and more concentrated use, large numbers of players gathered at greater frequencies, and correspondingly higher ambient noise levels. So it's not Terry making this stuff up. It's here in the report. We've seen how it played out in North Saanich in terms of having to, they set up pickleball courts and they had to take them down. And there's been a lot of data from other organizations as well. So what I would have liked to seen was when we discussed this back in 21, staff, recognized that Iroquois was, despite there being a hedge, was not necessarily the best route to go. And that's why we were going to look at this study from Saanich in regards to the acoustic panels. And that's what I would have liked to have some information on, that staff were going to look into that, and that would have been nice to be able to factor that into this. So that's my concern, that there will be increased use, and I think that will impact the neighborhood, and concern that we're not hoisting in what we learned from 5 years ago. So based on that, I don't feel I can support this at this time. Thank you.
Councillor Rintoul, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I didn't get my way, so I'd like to take my tennis ball and go home. But I feel like what I've heard from the tennis community is that it's not working for them either right now. And so for me just to not support this and see nothing change, I feel like probably wouldn't be a fair contribution towards a resolution and that both these parties seem to have reached and be supportive of. So I'm inclined to support the motion. I do need a clarification because I was in my own head a little bit when the mayor was asking staff about this question of subject to. So what I heard, what my understanding is subject to with respect to the consultation to the adjacent neighbors would be that staff are addressing that on the front end prior to proceeding with this, and that if alarm bells are set off, there'll be some point of reconsideration. Was that my takeaway? Was that correct?
Through the chair, confirmed, yes.
Okay. So with that in mind, and with the subject to reference here with regard to consultation in particular with respect to the immediate neighbors to this park, I will support the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have any further comments? All right. I will just finish by stating then I am supporting this motion as well, for roughly the same reasons. We know pickleball's not going anywhere. We know it's being played, and I want to make sure we actually plan for everyone who's being affected by it to feel like it's going better than perhaps the relationship has always been in the past. Since we last had the staff come forward about options for pickleball in Sydney, it has been 5 years, and that's 5 years of all of these sports groups getting to coexist with each other longer, with developments in paddle technology and with municipalities trying many different things. And so when we first looked at it, it was with the mind of, if we were a municipality going to build the best case scenario for sports equipment or for a sports location, what would we do? Well, we don't have any because Sydney is a very constrained, land constrained municipality. We don't have a perfect world, we have Sydney. And so it's imperfect in certain ways. And pickleball space turned out to be one of them. And so because we know people are using it, and because we know that this has been the one place where the tennis co-sportists, court users have been willing to come forward and say this is something that could work for us, I don't think we have a better option. And so I'm happy to move forward with this one. Thank you. And with that, I will call the question. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss? Yeah, I'm calling question on the main one. We've already defeated the amendment. Did we have another amendment or?
Potentially, but I may leave it as a motion arising.
Okay.
Sorry, potentially, but I may leave it to a motion arising. But I do have a question through to staff or the tennis tennis or pickleball representatives. So in the drawing, we've already touched on it. Councillor Garnett touched on it earlier. We see the alignment of the pickleball court to the south, which is kind of in the middle of that playing area. We see the pickleball court in the north, or sorry, the other way around. The pickleball court in the north, in the middle section, the pickleball court in the south, closer to the dividing curtain, to potentially allow a third court after the trial period and due consultation. My question is part of the rationale for shifting the court, or sorry, there would be ample room for 2 pickleball courts in the south and those benches, as is in the diagram? And the number of players that would be playing in that area?
Through the chair, my understanding is the proposal is to move the bench outside of the court, which is not ideal, but for space considerations.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's helpful. I'm going to make an amendment, and then we'll motivate for it, that the pickleball court to the south be aligned with the pickleball court to the north.
Do I have a seconder to the amendment?
Second for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, again, there is agreement amongst all parties, for having, going with 2 pickleball courts. There was a proposal at one time to have 4 pickleball courts, and they would fit in that area, but it would make the usage of the court, it would transform the usage in terms of the number of players that would be there at a given time, the number of players that would be waiting to play. There was suggestion that you would have to change accesses and egresses into the courts themselves and the placement of benches and that sort of thing. And yes, if we go through a 1.5-year trial period through 2 summer seasons of pickleball play, and everything goes swimmingly, and there's a proposal to put a 3rd court in, it would add to the cost of having to redo the lines to move it over. But at this time, I think it is a significant step forward, both for tennis and for pickleball, by placing 2 courts in this area. And I just feel better having more space from the tennis court, between the tennis court and that pickleball, that south pickleball court.
Councillor Garnett is the seconder. Do you have anything to add?
I guess a question for the representative of the Pickleball Association, if you wouldn't mind.
Mr. Harrigan.
Mr. Harrigan? Or whoever would like to take it. In terms of the alignment that the mayor has positioned, is there any issues because typically the courts are side by side, so is there any issues with having a court back to forward?
You'll have to hit your button again.
Sorry, your
Turn your
microphone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to touch base on 2 things. My name is Howard Halpenny. And if you go back over the last couple of years, and this is to kind of alleviate some thoughts that some people have about noise, we've been using 2 courts there.
Point of order. I'm sorry, Chair, I prefer if you just answers the question. We've
Yeah.
gone through that, I think, sir.
Okay, well, we've been using 2 courts there on a continuous basis. So there shouldn't be added noise with 2 courts. And so we requested 3, but 2 is
Is that
fine.
answering the question
As far
that
as
you
the
answered?
alignment
Yes,
was
you answered.
concerned,
Okay.
the only thought that we had, pardon me?
I'm sorry, the alignment, the question was
Okay,
just
but I wanted
specifically
to
the
touch
alignment.
base on that.
Yep.
But as far as the alignment is concerned, what we had planned on doing was putting the benches inside. And you put it on one side there, but, you know, if you have to put it in the middle, you have to put it in the middle. I'm not sure there'd be room for the benches inside on the diagram that I did there. I showed the benches inside.
Sorry, just to be clear on the question, so the mayor is proposing that the 2 courts on one side, and they're aligned with each other, so one would be on the north, one would be on the south. My question is that an issue for play, that you have your courts back to back as opposed to side, in terms of like, would that be more difficult, challenging, like seeing people
No.
playing in
Sorry,
your distance sort of
point of privilege. So I'm suggesting the courts, there be a court on the north side and the court on the south side. I'm not changing the placement. The only court is the south court would move from being to one side closer to tennis to the middle in the same alignment as the.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the question I'm asking. With those courts aligned, as I don't play
No,
pickleball, but
that's
is
not
that a problem
that's
for
not a
people
problem
seeing
for
other
play.
people playing in the distance?
That's not a problem for play.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, you had no further discussion. All right, Councillor Rintoul, I've got you.
Yeah, thanks. I just feel like this is part of the agreement that I wanted council to see, and could have addressed in a more fulsome manner some of these, frankly, operational type issues. It makes sense to me, but it's not what was proposed and supported by tennis. So now I feel like we have to pose the same question to tennis: is if you would clarify whether or not the design change the mayor has proposed makes sense from your perspective in terms of implications for or against the tennis court. And I say that in part because, again, it's unclear because we've heard 2 things about where the benches should be placed, and that will be the operational agreement that we're not going to get to see. But from your perspective, the tennis courts being realigned, the pickleball court to the south being realigned to be centered. I'm sorry, the online people can't hear you unless you approach the, yeah.
Tennis would have no problem if the 2 courts were being aligned as they're drawn, one in line with the other. In simple fact, we would actually see the tennis net could become just the buffer between the 2 courts, which would allow their play not to be disrupted between them if they wanted, but that would be a design factor. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about the motion right now. Well, as I understand it, we're amending the first point of the motion now to reference the configuration. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if we've had it read for how it actually flows in wording. Do you have that down?
I do not. I would appreciate it if we could have the
Thank you.
proposed amended wording all together, please.
So we have a motion, part 1. This is a second part to that motion, that the south court be aligned with the north court.
So,
Just to clarify, so that goes at the end, that's going at the very end of the motion?
Sorry. The motion that is on the floor is part 1 of a 3-part motion. We're just considering part 1. This would become a new part 2 to that motion, rather than amending the wording in the long sentence of that motion itself. And it simply provides clarification to the intention.
that sounds like a motion of, maybe a motion arising instead then.
Okay, so.
Okay. It sounds like she's found a way to make that an amendment rather than an additional motion, so we'll go with that. 2 dedicated pickleball courts with option A, the 2 pickleball courts in alignment something to that effect. Is that wording precise enough for you, Councillor O'Toole, to vote upon it? Does everybody feel okay?
If that's the mover's intent, then I'm happy with it, yeah.
All right. I think we have no further discussion on the amendment to the main motion, then I will call the question on that. All in favor? Looks like that's unanimous. I will return back to the main motion. I did not see anybody who had still to say anything about that main motion, so I'll call the question on that one. All in favor of main motion part 1? We have 5 in favor. Councillor O'Keefe was jumping the gun on opposing that one? Yes, okay, so Councillors Novak, Councillors Rintoul, myself, Councillor Garnett, and Mayor McNeil-Smith were in favor. All opposed? Councillor O'Keefe is opposed. The motion carries. I will now move on to number 2. And I believe Councillor Rintoul had an amendment to that one as well that he wished to move.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I believe staff have clarified to at least my satisfaction that the subject to reference in part 1 addresses what I would have done in terms of an amendment to part 2. So I will yield with the motion as is on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have further discussion on part 2? Councillor O'Keefe, go ahead.
Thank you. In regards to the consultation, and a question through you to staff, there was talk about perhaps going with, if rather than just the property owners across from the tennis courts, you had contemplated maybe just going out to people within 100-meter radius. So, and I was actually thinking what you might think of 110-meter radius, only because that's the radius that was mentioned in the 2021 report that stated individuals within 110 meters of pickleball are likely to be impacted by noise. So is that something that you think would be a reasonable amendment?
Through the chair, absolutely. 110 sounds good, but would be an amendment to the motion on the floor by the committee.
Okay. And in addition to that, I had also talked about other groups, and so I guess I'm wondering in terms of a motion whether I should mention within 110 meters and the community at large, or whether community at large. Any?
Through the chair, so yes, any amendment, of course, would be up to committee as a whole. I would want to separate them because we would want to do specific letters to residents,
Okay.
either as written or within 110 meters. We would do a specific letter with a lot of information and saying, please contact us directly. And then if committee desires some broader engagement, typically that would be Facebook and, town talk,
Okay,
possibly, but.
Okay, so something very specific for those within 110, and then if I were to tag on something about, and the broader community, that could just be through Facebook or whatever. Okay. All right, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay. And the amendment?
Well,
The motion's already been moved. We moved them all together.
Oh,
We did
okay.
separate them, but as far as,
okay, so
yeah, so
then,
you can just move the amendment.
I would amend number 2 to state that staff be directed to undertake consultation with owners within 110 meters from the tennis courts and the broader community, and report back to council on the results.
A second.
Thank you. Do you have any further motivation?
No, I think it just makes sense that 110 meters is what had been identified as the distance that residences within a pickleball area are likely to be impacted. So it makes sense to check in with them. And then broader uses, as we said before, there's dog people going to be using the dog court next door, other user groups in the park. That's a well-used park by the community at large, so I think it's worthwhile to get the community's sort of general feedback. And if that can be accomplished, you know, through Facebook or, you know, our website, it sounds like a pretty easy thing to do.
Councillor
Thanks.
Rintoul?
Nothing further?
Thank you. Does anyone have any further comments on the amendment? Mayor McNeil-Smith, go ahead.
Thank you. I won't support the amendment. I think going to the broader community, the folks who live across from the tennis courts live there 24/7. The people that come to the park for an hour or two, or even more, to have a picnic, are not having the same experience as people who live in the community. And so I don't see the need to go to the broader community. One could argue that broader engagement is necessary, but I think if you look at the circumstances and the context of this, you see in parks in other parts of Victoria, certainly in the Lower Mainland, where there are many different sports coexisting, including tennis and pickleball and other uses within the same park. And I think the users of the park, given the limited time they're there at any given time, would not experience or have the same concerns as the residents who live there.
Thank you.
And we're not even sure the residents will have a concern.
Any further comment? Councillor Novak?
Thank you, Chair. I won't support this amendment. I think the staff's initial recommendation and the motion as was originally read is sufficient for the purpose of this project. I don't believe that going to the community at large is going to inform us to any greater extent as to whether or not pickleball is viable in Iroquois Park. It is, we know that. It's already being played there. What we're talking about is tweaking it to some degree. And yes, I'd be very happy to undertake consultation with property owners that are immediately affected by this. And those are the ones that are across on Ocean Avenue from the existing courts. You might as well be asking Sydney residents what they think about pickleball courts in Vancouver for all the good it'll do to us in making this kind of a decision. I don't think it's I don't think that's a valid amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I will finish with, I support the 110 meters because I liked the rationale. Just for those who lived on Ocean Avenue who were following the development of pickleball courts, being able to feel like they were included using the rationale that Sydney Council had previously had. So that shows the continuity of our decision making. However, the broader community, I understand the rationale. We did have broader community engagement when we proposed adding the dog park there, but as that was a brand new use and a type of facility, it made more sense, whereas the pickleball is currently being played there. And people who have opinions about people playing pickleball there are already the ones, they already have what they have, and just really this is about the equipment that would be added and how it affects really, I think, people specifically using that court. So I'm actually okay with voting against it then, because I believe the staff, the way this is worded, does not constrain them in who they notify, and I believe that they will, after hearing council's conversation, choose their mailing radius accordingly. So with that, I will call the question. All in favor of the amendment? I see two, Councillor O'Keefe and Councillor Rintoul. All opposed? That's Councillor Novak, myself, Councillor Garnett, and Mayor McNeil-Smith opposed. The motion is defeated. We've done that was an amendment. We still haven't called the question on number 2, the main motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question on number 2, main motion. All in favor? Novak, Councillors Novak, Councillors Rintoul, myself, Councillor Garnett, and Mayor McNeil-Smith are in favor. All opposed? Councillor O'Keefe is opposed. Motion passes. We will now move on to number 3. Did anybody have any amendments on number 3 or further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Motion part 3 passes. I understand that at least 2 people have motions arising. Councillor Garnett, go ahead. You were the first to mention that.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move that council direct staff to investigate the costs of installing acoustic panels on the north, south, and I guess west portion, now that we're talking moving it, of the fencing surrounding the proposed pickleball area. Inquire to the Pickleball Association's willingness to contribute financially to the aforementioned panels and report back to council.
Do I have a seconder?
Second for discussion?
Right. Do you wish to motivate further?
Just briefly touch on what I said before. I think it's important that we have information before we get to a point where we may need it. And so this doesn't seem like it would be a big draw on staff time. And if there's a willingness from the Pickleball Association to contribute, I mean, we can talk about financial plans, all those things in the future, but I would like to have the information in my back pocket to know what the cost would be if we do have problems in this area and we need to address it before we actually get to that point. Thank you.
Councillor Rintoul, seconder?
Thank you, Chair. I don't intend to motivate, but if I may, throw you a question to the mover.
Go ahead.
What was the intent around the timeline in relation to staff signing the agreement with the Pickleball Association? Since this motion would ask for their insight on a financial role, potentially, in acoustic paneling, I'm assuming that would need to be written into the agreement, hence you would want this information back to council prior to staff signing that agreement. Is that the intent?
I'll look to staff to see what they would like to see happen.
Through the chair, so there's probably an increasing probability of a report back to council based on the consultations and now this. So again, the intent was just efficiency and you know, hoping the additional cost would not be necessary, right? So again, I would default to wanting to try it out with the hedge and the you know, what's currently there, rather than needing to fully research this. But it also, yeah, and while fully understanding the intent of having the information ready if problems arise. So it could go either way on the timing for this. What seek council or Mr. Edwards?
Mr. Edwards, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would propose that the agreement move it forward with the current arrangement in mind, and that should a trial period yield concerns around noise, that those options be presented at a future date and in consultation with the association about costs or cost sharing be explored. Ultimately, if that becomes problematic at the time, there'll be still options available to council as to whether to continue to move forward bearing all of the costs or pulling back from the initiative altogether.
Okay.
But I would my sense is right now is to move forward with without trying to build those additional clauses in.
Okay. Given staff's feedback, I'll remove the motion.
All right, motion withdrawn. Motion it's accepted by the seconder. Do we have any other further motions arising? Mayor McNeil Smith? No, you had added yours to number 2. All right, with that then, I think we have finished that item. And we have no other business. I will look for a motion to, we have a special council meeting. Yeah, oh, sorry. I'm going, why don't I have a motion for, yeah, okay. Well, move to adjournment. So moved. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? That's unanimous. This motion, or this meeting is finished. I'll turn the chair over to the mayor for the special